Gunnar Peterson here. Welcome back to MWI's Behavioral Video Series. Today we've got a special session as we continue the movement and recovery series with our follow-up video on sleep. All pillars of human performance and health depend on a good night's sleep. Our movement, and especially our recovery, are affected by whether or not we got a good night's rest. And we've heard from you that sleep is an important issue. So today we have our sleep expert joining us to address the top questions and issues you sent us over the past 5 weeks. Doctor, give us some more background about your interest in sleep.
So as a clinical health psychologist, I'm really interested in sleep and both understanding who it is that can't sleep, what happens, and what we can do about it. So if we can identify who the people are at risk, what things change in their bodies when they can't sleep, we might be able to design interventions to improve the health and well-being of those individuals.
All right, so why is sleep so important? I mean, I think I know, but maybe you can give me some insight.
Well, so we spend a third of our life sleeping.
I don't.
You don't.
No.
Many don't.
About a tenth of my life.
Right. So in fact, 35% of people get less than 7 hours of sleep. And we know that 7 hours of sleep for adults is what kind of is the key number for optimal health. We are really interested in trying to understand kind of what it is about sleep that affects health. So we know that people that don't sleep enough are unable to kind of effectively protect themselves against, say, the cold virus. Right. We know that people who don't sleep enough are more likely to get diabetes or cardiovascular disease. And this is still, there's still a huge proportion of people that are in this kind of short sleeping group. People that kind of chronically sleep less than 6 or 5 hours are more likely to have increases in their body mass index over time. If we take people into the laboratory and we deprive them of sleep just for a night, we see changes in kind of hormones, satiety hormones like ghrelin and leptin that regulate appetite. People's preferences for foods change, so they're more likely to crave fatty foods, high carbohydrate foods. And it turns out even though they're awake longer, they consume more food than kind of the energy need of staying awake that time.
All right, so Dr. Prather, I'm going to take a couple of questions from the community.
Great.
Here's one. I'm having issues shutting down my mind and letting my body go into a deep sleep. I toss and turn for a couple hours. What suggestions can you make to help me get my body into a deep sleep?
So it turns out that there are a number of different things that regulate our sleep, and when those go awry, this kind of thing can happen, not enough deep sleep. So the 3 things that regulate our sleep are 1, our homeostatic sleep drive, which is basically the idea of the longer you're awake, the more you want to sleep. The second thing is your circadian rhythm. So this is something that's natural in your body and kind of tells you kind of when you should go to sleep at night. And then the third thing is arousal. So your mind, kind of that buzzing that some people feel when they try to go to sleep. They always report in the clinic that, I felt really tired when I went to bed, and then I got in bed and all of a sudden my mind was racing. And so there are a lot of things that you can do, kind of setting up a time period of kind of wind down, kind of relaxation, shut the laptop, stop doing electronic media, take some time to yourself. Maybe it's a nice bubble bath, maybe it's just reading, maybe it's spending time with your family, but doing things that are less arousing so that your body is kind of in a nice state for falling asleep. And then with respect to the circadian rhythm piece, maintain a routine is important. So things like setting a normal wake time every morning. One of the things that we can't control is when we fall asleep, but one thing we can control is when we wake up. And the more predictable your wake up time, the kind of more predictable your bedtime and the likelihood that you'll increase the depth of sleep over time.
Here's another question from the community related to the earlier question. I wake up every couple of hours for what seems to be no reason. I lay there and try to go back to sleep. What advice can you give to those who frequently wake up during the night?
What happens is when people wake up at night, and it happens all the time, they begin to have a conditioned response so that every time they wake up, they become overly aroused cognitively because they're worried about kind of things going on in their life. There's kind of an automatic activation of the brain. And so this can kind of become a real big problem for some individuals. And so one thing that we always tell people to do is first make the bedroom kind of a sanctuary for sleep. We say only sleep and sex in the bedroom. Don't do other things that may be arousing. Don't do anything that like lying awake in bed for a long period of time, because for some people this can be begin to condition you to be awake in the bedroom. And then the second thing is if you do wake up and it feels like you're not going to fall back asleep, and there's no kind of gold standard for how long that is. We all kind of know how long it feels to be like, I'm not going to fall asleep tonight, but something like 10 to 15 minutes perhaps. You want to remove yourself from the bedroom, kind of calm yourself back down, do something that isn't going to be particularly arousing, maybe reading, listening to kind of relaxing music, or just kind of sitting in the darkness. And then when you feel sleep coming back to you, you want to go try again. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make that can get them into some trouble around sleep problems, particularly insomnia, is thinking that sleep is something that you do. Sleep is actually something that comes to you. And you, as someone that has a potential sleep problem, never worried about how you slept until you stopped. And people get kind of really caught up in trying to figure that out. And that thinking, that worrying about not being able to sleep is not compatible with sleeping.
All right, one more from the community. How much are mood disorders connected to sleep? And if I don't get enough sleep, is that because I could be depressed?
We do know that mood disorders are highly related to sleep problems. For many mood disorders and other psychiatric illnesses, problems with sleep is one of the symptoms. This goes for depression, this goes for bipolar disorder, it's a problem with anxiety, and a whole host of other things. In fact, it has a fancy word as a potential transdiagnostic factor in understanding these psychiatric illnesses, meaning that sleep kind of might be one of those pathways that kind of cuts across all of these things. With the case of depression, there's a number of things that you would want to know, of course. You want to know if people are having depressed mood or are having limited pleasure in things that they used to like doing. This is called anhedonia. For 2 weeks most of the time. Those are kind of two classic symptoms of depression. People that get their depression treated in other psychiatric illnesses, often their sleep will improve. And on the flip side, if you actually work on your sleep, that actually seems to improve people's depression. So they're tightly related, and you can really start with either one, but certainly get that checked out.
And here's a new twist on a question that I tried to ask before. How do nutrition and weight impact sleep?
When you think about nutrition, the things that first pop to your mind are things like caffeine, right? So energy drinks, other drinks with high levels of caffeine can certainly affect your sleep, particularly if you take them later in the evening when you want to kind of be winding down. The same could be said for alcohol. Alcohol is a great way to help you fall asleep because it works so well, but it actually does terrible things to your sleep. It ends up making it less deep and more fragmented, and so ultimately your sleep is not as restorative. Weight, of course, is an important one. Sleep apnea is an epidemic in the United States and elsewhere, and we know that many people with excess weight are more likely to develop sleep apnea that can cause kind of difficulties in maintaining sleep, often things that are imperceptible. And it's usually a bed partner telling us that their partner is snoring the whole night that gives us the first clue. But people are kind of drowsy during the day. There's more kind of accidents in individuals that have sleep apnea, of course. And so weight plays a really large role in how we sleep, particularly when we get to the high end of weight.
Don't forget that there are great resources out there to help you get a good night's sleep. Let me quote Kool Moe Dee. Knowledge is power. So I encourage you to use the UA Record app and the UA Band to track your sleep and learn more about how you sleep. You can also find more perspective and resources on sleep on MWI's Facebook page, along with this week's workout that I know you're doing. And we hope you'll add to the conversation by posting any thoughts or experiences you may have on the topic. I'm sure you got a lot out of today's session. We're going to do another one of these in a couple of weeks on nutrition and weight. Next week, we continue the movement and recovery series with a look at stretching. I hope you enjoyed a great Columbus Day, and big birthday wishes to our Navy family celebrating the U.S. Navy's birthday on October 13th.